Hello, everybody. Welcome tonight. I am so grateful that you all are here to join us this evening. I would love to start by doing a little bit of an introduction to both myself and our guest, who is joining me live from my home studio today. And we will go ahead and get started. So thanks so much for being here, everybody. So again, my name is Jess Posner. Many of you have been to our events before. My pronouns are she and they, and I am the director of the Virtual Y at the YMCA of Central New York. Though we are coming to you virtually, we are accessible to anyone with access to the internet. The YMCA of CNY does exist as 8 physical branches and 3 camps located in and around Onondaga County in New York State, which stands upon the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee indigenous people. At the suggestion of one of our guests from last week, Sora Uriye, I'm going to offer a verbal description of my image as well. I am a tall, larger-bodied queer white woman of mixed European and Jewish heritage who lives with chronic illness. I am wearing an asymmetrical haircut, some round glasses, and an earring that says revolution, and a black sleeveless top. The background behind me is a full bookshelf and some happy plants, including an orchid. And next to and behind me is a tall and thin man of Italian heritage with a bald head and vibrant blue glasses, a bright, full beard and mustache, which curls up at the end. This is also our guest for tonight, Michael DeSalvo. It is my pleasure to formally welcome you to the 3rd event in our month-long virtual speaker series celebrating Pride here in Central New York. The series Why Pride 2021, celebrating LGBTQIA+ activists and organizers in Central New York, takes place every Monday in June from 5 to 6 p.m. Tonight's program is titled Enduring Friends of Dorothy House, and it features a screening of a 35-minute documentary film about Friends of Dorothy House and its founders, Michael DeSalvo and his partner, Nickolas Orth, who wasn't able to be here with us tonight. The event is one of many events that the YMCA of CNY is proudly offering to celebrate Pride this month, because the YMCA is here for all, including our LGBTQIA+ community and all of the marginalized identities who intersect therein. To learn more about all of our Pride programs, please visit the Y's website. I'm gonna copy and paste into the chat a link here for you to check out that blog post. And please share all of that widely. We've got a lot of things going on this week and then also next week, and we're really excited to share that and hope to see you at all of them. Tonight is going to work a little bit differently than our other virtual events, as we're going to be streaming a film. So I'm going to be streaming a version of that through our Zoom channel, like as a screen sharing, but based on my experiences, sometimes technology can be like a little funny. So what I will also do is I will copy and paste a link to the Vimeo channel that you can actually visit, and you can stream that on your own if you would like to. So like, for example, if like there's a problem with the image or with the sound, you can just click on that link and then pick up where you left off, and then just join us at about 20 before 6. So at about 5:40 when we'll be having our conversation together. All right, so without further ado, I would love to briefly introduce the film and our guest. The film, Enduring Friends of Dorothy House, is a 35-minute, 27 documentary film by Kevin R. Brown. It examines the Friends of Dorothy House, a nondescript home in Syracuse's Holly Green neighborhood, which has been home to more than just its 2 owners, Michael DeSalvo and Nickolas Orth. The Friends of Dorothy House is DeSalvo and Orth's initiative to support people with HIV and AIDS. Since October of 1992, they have offered home-based care to people with HIV and AIDS in a variety of ways, including recuperative or hospice care, supportive housing, emergency assistance, and also other social supports that intersect with a variety of other social issues. DeSalvo is also the owner of Paranoia Salon, which is located here in Syracuse, New York. Michael is also someone that I greatly respect as both a friend, and I feel like he might be upset if I call him a queer elder, but he is, and someone that I continuously learn and grow from. So before we begin the screening, would you like to add anything?
Just real quickly, often I feel like the issue of AIDS has left us. And with this new pandemic that we just went through, how triggering it was for a lot of the elders who experienced HIV and lived through that. So I hope that you enjoy the film. I was really grateful that I was able to have people tell the stories. So it wasn't just me telling the stories. I think that we should probably let the film happen, and then I hope that you'll engage afterwards. But I just want to thank, of course, Oshi for allowing us to be on their land, but for all the people that contributed to this. I always look at our guests as our greatest teachers, so I always want to thank them for the privilege of caring for them and trusting us to do the work that we need to do. We've always said it's their journey, we're just along for the ride. So they were our greatest teachers. So I just want to put a thank you to everyone that you will see in the film and all of our guests that we've had over the years, that that we loved them. I think the most important thing is that people understand is that it wasn't just about responding, it was about loving the people who were so stigmatized and unloved. And I urge you to watch a lot of other films and things around HIV, Longtime Companion, It's a Sin, Pose. There's so many out there, but some are done well and some are kind of fluffy. They all get a little fluffy for me because when you're actually doing the work, it's really intense. But I'll shut up and let you all watch the film, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn and grow from it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a moment to get our screen sharing set up, and then we will begin. So again, just for anyone that re-entered the chat, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the link to the Vimeo channel in case we get disconnected or in case there's an issue with quality, so that you can load that up directly for yourself.
I just want to say a quick thank you to Jess for putting this together, and the Y for doing this, to having the courage to put this type of program out there. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael. It really is. It's our pleasure. And I have to extend a gratitude to our team and to our CEO, who has also been so supportive of this. All right, so let's get going here. All right, can I get just a thumbs up from somebody that we have sound and image?
Credit Union Taste of Syracuse.
The Crunch, they won last night. They advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Second and third in and around Clinton Square. Brent acts 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Is on the diamond Saturday.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a gorgeous stage.
Yeah.
I'm a little stressed out about all the stuff at the building that has to happen. Yeah, it's just a crazy thing. Breakfast for the guest.
For the last 25 years, my partner and I have opened our home to our guests, those living with HIV and AIDS. And here is our story. Welcome to Friends of Dorothy House. First of all, what I'd like to say to you, I'd like to have a dialogue instead of me just talking at you or to you. So I'm going to give you some of my background and history, and then I'd like to share, I'd like you to ask questions.
So how come you guys do this every morning for your guests?
Why? Because they're hungry. So I think out of the questions come what you need to hear and what you would like to hear. I don't want to assume that I know that.
Actually, his breakfast is much lovelier.
So to backtrack a little bit, this was about 85, 86.
He'll make his own if I can't, or if Nick can't, but we kind of like to do this for him because he is a guest.
And this is a weird combo, but this is what he loves. So I started in jail ministry. The first person that I visited was positive, and I really felt like he put me on my path.
He's good with this. Gooey. viciousness.
When I was working in the jails and prisons and visiting people and connecting those dots, my life started to take many turns.
This goes to show you, Friends of Dorothy House, it's always different.
I realized that the militarism and the prison industrial complex were sucking the life out of our communities. They were sucking resources out of our communities, and they were really damaging people. I started to get involved with a lot of anti-violence, anti-war movement, and it was through those actions that I really felt my life moving more in the direction of what God wanted me to do.
I know what I'll do to make it pretty. I will put lemon curd, chocolate lemon curd on this cookie. He'll probably love that because he loves that. Sugar cookie Nick made.
I actually met my partner, Nick, protesting nuclear weapons. He was at the Catholic Worker in DC, where they would take in homeless families. And I was up here working in the jails and prisons and volunteering at the Oxford Inn.
Voila, breakfast at Friends of Dorothy.
And we did long distance for a bit. He continued to be in his community. I continued to work in the community here.
Now I go bring it to him.
And then when he moved up in '92, we started our house.
I'm actually embarrassed to have had breakfast, but it is what it is today. Like I said, he always loves it.
And let me tell you something. When you let the Holy Spirit really work, you have no idea what path you're going to come on or how fast it's going to happen or, whether it's convenient or not. So many times we want to think as Christians that we are the only ones. I think that we all find our path to God, but we are all connected. We are all the same, and we need to constantly try to bring that into our consciousness and into our minds. Instead of looking at our differences and our differences of our faith, what we need to do is look at the common good and the common goals.
Now for the real breakfast treat. Vitamins.
The challenge of Christianity is to not just love people who are like us. That is easy.
This is pretty much what I live on.
But the challenge of our faith and our Christianity is to love those who are different from us as we love ourselves, as we love God.
Because I don't often get to eat a whole lot, I think it's great I take out my vitamins. This has gotten me through years. Cholesterol. Vitamin B, because we don't store them. D, because we live in Syracuse. Adrenal support for stress. Turmeric for inflammation. I guess this is supposed to keep you from getting a stroke. That's really important. Definitely need that.
It's not just about us, it's also about the interaction of the guests and the whole thing. There's a lot of components. We create the space for it, but it's up to all of them to make it happen too. So.
Not quite as lovely as what the guests get.
In 1992, there was still no place for people to go with HIV and AIDS to die.
This will probably really gross people out.
We all need the works of mercy at some time or another in our life.
Breakfast is done. My grandmother made that for me when I was a little kid because I was so skinny.
Never living with someone that's dying before and having to take care of them. There was all those pieces of uncertainty and what are we doing?
I said goodbye to my boyfriend.
It was heartbreaking. It was frightening.
Nick.
Yeah?
I will see you later, honey.
What?
I will see you later.
You see films of Auschwitz and you see children starving in other countries and you always think about it over there or someone else's experience, and then all of a sudden it was our experience. And it was so present and it was so real and it was so startling and sad to have to not just imagine it, but to smell it, to touch it, to look at it, to feel it, and feel so helpless.
Federal health officials consider it an epidemic, yet you rarely hear a thing about it. At first, it seemed to strike only one segment of the population. Now, Barry Peterson tells us this is no longer the case.
It was devastating, you know.
People just were so afraid. I mean, even the doctors were deathly afraid that they were going to get it.
We're all scared here too, but then the education that we got, it just calmed everything down.
Just trying to allay people's fears, I think, was the hardest part. Or getting information out that was the truth, as opposed to, you know, fear. And trying to convince people that, you know, you can't get HIV from having dinner with someone who has HIV, or, you know, things like that. And I remember suiting up to go see a friend in the hospital, and it was, of course, now we know it was totally unnecessary. But again, people didn't know how it was transmitted. It was that whole period from early 80s to the middle 90s that there wasn't a whole lot that you could do. So unless you had a very strong constitution and you could last until the protease inhibitors came out, you know, you pretty much were you know, destined to die.
And while health officials plead for money, the disease continues to claim lives in record numbers.
My partner died in '86, and I was pretty sure that I was HIV positive then. And looking back, I realized I seroconverted in '83. And so I spent from '86 on just trying to learn as much as I could about this disease and what, you know, what I could do to, you know, boost my immune system. And it was rough. So I kind of knew, but getting the actual news was still very, very hard. I knew I was probably going to die. I just didn't know when. And I got really close, but luckily I came out of it. But it's hard to describe because, you know, you have a sense of hopelessness. You know, that you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen to you, your family, or whatever. You know, you just don't know, and that's probably the hardest thing. It's just not knowing, you know, what's going to happen.
Okay, come on.
I remember hearing of a friend in New York that was diagnosed, and then 2 weeks later he was dead. So it was, you know, it's rough, you know. And I had at one point I had to swear off the funerals. I just had to stop going. I just couldn't handle it any longer.
Come on, guys. Nope.
It had a pretty devastating impact, actually. There were a lot of guys that that passed away here and got it and got sick. There's I'm trying to even think if I know anybody who's still around from that era. I can't think, actually. I think most of my friends then have passed away. They all passed before Michael and Nick even started. They didn't reap the benefits of Michael and Nick. So a lot of people thought they were crazy, you know, and a lot of people didn't. The medical community was thrilled because no one had ever done this. They had patients that had nowhere to go, so they could you know, call Michael and Nick, and either Michael would arrange something or they would take them in, and so that was a big deal. I think a year or so before they started the house. I just became friends with them, and I, being a contractor, they said, you know, we need help moving this tub. Can you come over and move this tub? So that was before their first guest, who his only request was he wanted to take a bath. So we swapped the tub from upstairs to downstairs and hooked it all up and got it ready, and he moved in, I think, the next day and got his bath.
I told the guy that I needed at least 3 days to get a room ready. Shortly before this, I was at Mass, and the priest had said, you know, this Advent, to look for Christ, but not in the creche, that he would come in another form or way to you, and to be aware and to be looking for that. David was our Christmas. That was our Christ. And he died actually the week of Christmas.
I got tons and tons of pictures. This here, this is, we actually did a mailing party. So, you know, see the Great Mail Party of 1989. There's David, another David. I met David probably in the early 80s. He was a weekend bartender, a door person at a local gay bar. At one point, he ended up actually living with me and my partner, no place to go, and had lost his job, so he was staying with us. He ended up kind of being our housemaid kind of guy. He would clean the house and do the dishes and make us supper because he couldn't contribute any other way until he found his own place. He died at Michael's house too. So we got to know each other a lot. And he was an older gay man. I think he was in his 40s when I met him. So he also was an ex-drug addict, and he liked to drink and stuff like that. But he got away from the drugs, and he got away from his friends who were drugs, and then he became positive. He found out that he was positive. And this is David's panel that I made for him. He was obsessed with Star Trek Next Generation. He wasn't leaving his house. So I was actually going to his house, helping him out. Yeah, here's a picture. We're painting the lavender line. So that's me, Michael, and Nick. It just happened one night. I was out at the bar, standing at the dance floor watching these two guys. I just looked at the guy next to me and started talking to him, and that happened to be Michael, DeSalvo. And, you know, we just started talking about them, and then the next week I was talking to him some more. And eventually I was talking to him about my friend David, and that he needed to get a haircut, and I was trying to figure out how to get him a haircut because he was so sick that he couldn't stand up half the time and stuff. And he said he was a hairdresser, and so he said, I'll go over and do it. And they had just bought their house like 3 weeks prior to all of this transpiring. But at that point, I'm just looking for somebody to help me get my friend's haircut. Hi, America! When he died and stuff afterwards, you know, his family really appreciated the fact that somebody was there to take care of him. You know, when he died on December 17th, and they had just went to go sing in the community choir that night for their solstice concert. So I was at the house, and he died.
How sweet the sound.
It was really emotional because, you know, once they put him in the body bag and stuff, one of the people that came started singing, you know, Amazing Grace as they were taking him out to the vehicle, and then everybody else started singing, and it was pretty intense and very emotional.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
We knew that this was going to be a long haul, you know. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know that they would just start calling with the next one and the next one, you know. We never thought about that, wait, there isn't any place for people to go, so this is it, and so now we're gonna be the ones that get called.
When I think about Wendy, my dear Wendy, she was an advocate through and through. She understood advocacy in a really up close and personal way. She lived it, right? It was what she grew up with. She really helped people come from behind the shadows and not be afraid to admit your diagnosis.
You can't kill the spirit. It is like a mountain.
One of Wendy's experiences when she first got her diagnosis, she was told, she went to a church, and she was told not to shake anyone's hands, or she would always be a little apprehensive about even going to an event and going near the food to serve her own plate. So we would go with her, and she would ask us to go, you know, just because of the lack of understanding.
Saturday, December 1st, has been declared nationally as a day without art.
Join us in celebrating the achievements and mourning the losses of the creative community.
She really wanted to give voice, and she did. And ultimately, she went all over the world to talk about issues and living with AIDS as a Black woman in this country and what it meant for her in the early 90s. She had this unbelievable impact on this community, you know, and then when you couple people like Michael and Nick and Wendy, wow, weren't we fortunate and blessed to have people like that love us in spite of ourselves as a community. She gave a voice and a face. She said, I am your neighbor, I am your sister, I am your daughter, I am your friend. When you see me, you see AIDS.
Closer still for those like me, laughing and loving, still thriving and surviving, trying to keep living while dying with this horror known as AIDS.
You have to be unbelievably courageous. And Michael and Nick do that to this day, and that's why we love them dearly.
She wanted to be here, and but it was a very complicated and really difficult time. And she was a major activist that was also very different, taking care of an activist. She wanted to use her illness right to the end to fight for others.
Spread your wings, soar high, fly free. I love ya.
She exposed us to the realities and the fight that she had, and when she would tell her stories and talk about, you know, them leaving her food on the floor outside of her door in the hospital and putting her in like a broom closet with a broken window instead of a regular hospital room, you know, things like that. Her sharing her experiences taught us the realities of what, you know, women of color were facing. You know, and she wasn't the only woman of color we had here, you know, we had other women after that. And so we knew how to advocate and fight for them also.
One of the challenges that we face is how to best serve our guests. We care for them, we serve them, and we could not have done it without our community support.
We have this preconceived ideas of, you know, people, and I think what was hard for me more
was how quickly people were to dismiss or devalue the work of working with the poor and working with the prisoner. The works of mercy are all about that. It's feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, giving drink to the thirsty, burying the dead, visiting the prisoner. That is what was asked of us to do.
I don't really have a target, but you know, often we'll bring in around $3,000. You know, but making the money is never the point.
There's risk. I think people are fine with most things as long as there's no risk. Then risk comes in. Ooh, then you know, then you see where they really stand with things.
So what I did is I let my mother and my sister be interviewed, and I got to learn a lot about their side of, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
Hi, honey. How are you? Back in the days, Michael and Nick, this house, oh my God, was filled with people every Sunday.
How are you doing?
Today's not a good day, but it's okay.
I love your hair.
Thank you. I came for dinner, and it was wonderful to sit with people and eat and have some company. But at the same time, I still was not really ready to come out the house. So Michael would come, when I wouldn't show up every Sunday, Michael would knock on my window, because I live on the first floor, and say, "Hope Dawn, did you eat? Come and eat." And so basically that's how I met Michael and Nick. Michael, and to this day, if Michael doesn't see me for a long time, his shop is right across the street from my apartment. And he says, "Hope Dawn, how are you? How you been? Have you been eating? Come over to the house, we got food." So my loving parents, always feeding me, always caring. I like your haircut.
I just got it. Listen, I need to run and pick up Dwayne.
Okay, where do you want us?
Back room?
When I got sick and I went to the doctor, and they told me that, basically this is how they told me that I was dying. "Hope, there's nothing else we can do for you. Get your things in order. We're sending you to Rosewood." And I'm like, "Rosewood? What do you mean you can't do anything?" I said, "Could you send the social worker in, because I really don't understand what you're talking about." I was so scared. I was so confused. And I didn't know what else to do. And I went home and I said, "Let me call Michael." I called up Michael, and Michael has a way of sing-songing when he talks to you. So I call up and I said, "Hi, Michael." He says, "Hi, Hope Dawn." Michael is the first person who ever in my life has ever called me by my first and middle name. And so he says, "Hi, Hope Dawn." I said, "Hi, Michael." He said, "What you up to?" I said, "Oh, nothing." He said, "What have you been up to?" I said, "Oh, nothing." I said, "Hey, Michael." He said, "What, Hope Dawn?" I said, "What's Rosewood?" And he stopped singing song. He said, "Rosewood? Who's going to Rosewood?" And so I'm still sing-songing with him. "Oh, just me." He said, "Oh," and all of a sudden he hung up on me. So now I'm even more terrified, more confused. And then the next thing I knew, they were knocking on my window, and him and Nick came with a wheelchair, and they said, "We're taking you home." And it took me home. And even though the doctor said that I had 2 weeks to live, Michael and Nick helped me fight, and here I am. 18 years later, alive. Which is now Annette's room. I'll let it be Annette's room. So what would you like to know? It was wonderful that someone would just stop what they're doing in the middle. I don't know what they were doing, what they could have been doing, but whatever they were doing, they stopped and came and got me. Matter of fact, this is, I say Hope walked in this room and Hope walked out. Is a remarkable man. I mean, I've heard people say to be Jesus-like, but I've never really got to see it in action. I kept telling Michael, I don't want to get up on the wall. Please don't. I don't want to get on the wall. They're a true example of, and I didn't make it to the wall, what it is to be Jesus-like. I think both of them have a true connection with God. Amen. They're the true Christians, true Christians. Not those fake ones that holier than thou and want to preach BS to you. They put in the work. They put in the love, you know? They're real.
I basically said, you don't have time for the people who don't love you. You need to put all your energy into yourself, loving yourself, and accepting. And with that, she got better and better. We chose to have a very different life. And instead of just having a child and raising them to grow up, we had some that never made it, and we have some that have. You know, so when those ones do come back, there's a great joy. Like when they come for Christmas or whatever, it's like when they come in the door, I know what the feeling of someone that raised a child would feel like. It's like we're so happy that they're here. It's very different and unique experience. And like I said, we take them in and, you know, instead of them going on and moving on their life all the time, a lot of them died. And it was like burying, you know, a piece of us with each one, I think.
My son, John, died of AIDS on November 21st, 1993. It was the greatest loss I've ever known. It's very sad to know that when someone is so sick with AIDS, their family has forgotten them. This is a place that I don't feel alone. I'm very happy and proud that John's family loved him for himself. Everyone has told him I missed him so. I loved him so. This is not much. I'll do more as I can. Please keep up the work and giving love to everybody.
We haven't gotten a million yet.
another hug? It was so good. I want another one. Oh!
Sorry, forgot to unmute the mic. Unmute the mic there. We just had a really big thunder over my house. I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, so much for joining us this evening, for being with us through that screening of the documentary. I am going to go ahead and spotlight myself and Michael for everybody. And I wanted to offer an invitation to please put any questions or comments or things that you are curious about into the chat so that we can have, you know, about a 15-20 minute conversation with Michael, who is here with us now. To go ahead and get started, if you don't mind, Michael, I would love to ask you if you wouldn't mind reflecting on the experience of watching the film. I know you've seen it many times and you've lived it, you know, many times over. I was just curious if you'd like to say anything.
Each time it brings up something different. And like I said, I never allowed anyone to get that intimate with us. We were always so protective over our guests and privacy and everything. So this was a very different experience for us in doing this, but we just felt like the story needs to be told. It's important, and the history is important for younger people to know the history of what was going on in Syracuse, New York. You know? And this is just like such a small piece of it, but it's an important piece of it.
Is there anything that you want to like communicate out to folks like in Syracuse today that you'd like for people to know?
That we should be proud of our community for rallying the way they did. We broke down lots of barriers and lots of, you know, thoughts and ideas people had, and especially within the church. You know, but I'm just grateful that we were able to do that here. And I always am grateful for the nurses and the medical professionals who, you know, were so courageous and kind, and worked so well with us. What a well-oiled machine. It was their trust in us. It was the guests' trust in us and the medical professionals that really, you know, brought out the best in us and were able to make us make it all possible. You know, it's you know, it was incredibly humbling. And I know people think it's so nice, or they'll glorify it in this really weird way sometimes, or say how nice we are, whatever, and not that nice. And it was necessary. And it was really, really hard and really, really sad to watch mothers as their children, children as their parents, the people that had no one that wanted to come, the stigma on top of being sick. He said this pandemic was different because it affected people differently, quicker, but the cruelty that we witnessed often, I just wonder, I like to ask the question back, like, what did we learn? Are we better people? You know, and I still wonder. I think as a species, God, like our humanity and compassion and empathy have not kept pace with our technology. There's no reason for the suffering in the world to be happening that is. It's, you know, all boils down to greed and dominance and power. And this exposed it as so many other things have. You know, this was just another glimpse of the ills of our culture and how people responded and reacted, and that people could turn on their own children. It's sad. It's a sad thing.
I want to ask you a little bit about your faith, because having known you for actually like close to 20 years, it is, I don't know if you guys can pick up like the major thunderstorm that's happening outside, but it's like shaking my house right now. But I wanted to ask you about your faith, because I know that in many conversations that we've had, you've said that it is something that is core to you, also core to this work. And I was wondering, you know, because we are the YMCA, right?
YMCA. Whatever.
Right.
I don't do that well.
You know what I mean? But in terms of like core Christian values, right? So I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about what your like faith path was like and how it brought you to this work, to this calling, and to where you are today.
Well, I was raised Catholic. My parents were never oppressive over faith or religion. And so I was one of the lucky ones that didn't get polluted with all the shit that can happen, can happen in faith and Christian culture. We got to see the best and the worst of it. And to me, like I talked about, the works of mercies are so important, and the crux of it all. So, you know, I think some people look at us, oh, they call us saints, all that stuff. And I always remind them, saints are sinners that just kept trying. And I can own my sinner part. The faith part, I couldn't have done it without the faith. And we never inflicted that upon our guests. We took in all different faiths and traditions and people who didn't believe in anything and respected them for who they were. We were never the type trying to save people on that deathbed, but to love them. And so it taught us about love. It taught us about what it really meant. You know, Christ was such a revolutionary and didn't hang him on a cross because he was this, you know, nice guy and everything. He was against empire. He was against the hierarchy and the patriarchy, and the things that Christ was doing were really, really against the culture. And I believe that we've often recreated everything Christ came to change. So this was an incredible opportunity to really enflesh what our faith really meant to us. And it was, you know, these people were considered the least of us, and to not only take them in, but to love them and to protect them and to care for them in such intimate ways, really connected, kept me connected to my faith. The institutions, forget. Like for me, they're, you know, I'm not saying that they don't have their place, and I love my ritual and stuff, but the sins of the church have damaged and hurt. And I witnessed Christians using their faith as a way to validate their cruelty and their hypocrisy and their inability to really embrace Christianity as love. If it's not of love, then there's nothing left. It's all crap. So walking this walk, and also, you know, having Christian ministers and preachers come into our house and treat us totally like crap, was good for us. It kept us humble. It kept us real. It kept us fighting. It kept us confronting. It kept us true to our mission and true to what our faith meant to us.
Thank you for sharing that. because something that some of the people on the call may be a little bit familiar with, or, people just within the larger community may know, is that sometimes as people step into doing this kind of work, right, especially if you do it leading as a marginalized identity, right, for example, as like gay or queer people, right, you do get faced with some of that blowback or pushback or people's fears or limiting beliefs, right, that they will perhaps make very vocal. So do you have advice, for example, for people or for organizations who are, for example, maybe putting themselves in a vulnerable position of becoming uncomfortable with some of their communities, whether that be of faith or professionally or in their families, in order to be able to sort of like fully step into work that they believe they need to do to be them full selves and to honor themselves, their faith, their belief in humanity, belief in love as a faith practice?
Well, I think my advice is to look for the similarities instead of the differences, to recognize, I mean, my faith, even though I'm Christian, I'm kind of like feel that there's really like one God and we all take different paths to it. And it's like phones. Some people use Verizon, some people say, T-Mobile, I don't know. But if it's not of the love practicing, then, guard yourself from it. And if you are a leader or if you are in a position of power, you should be feeling uncomfortable. I got to feel really uncomfortable. Like I said, some of these preachers and ministers, folks that would come in, or even medical professionals that were really ignorant at the time, would come into the house. We faced a lot of the same oppression just for being connected to them, just for being with them. With
your guests.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And even within my own communities, family and friends, it was really hard. But what I say to people is be true to yourself and be true to the mission of, ask yourself, why are you doing this? Like, why am I doing this? And if it's not coming, if it's about you, I mean, we didn't use a lot of volunteers because they were more work than the guests sometimes. And that's very true. And they were well-intentioned, but they had an agenda. And so we were able to really let go of an agenda and say to the people who were living with us, it's your trip, we're here along for the ride. So to be mindful of your place and your power and your privilege, and don't use it as a weapon, and don't use it to manipulate, but to truly get down with whatever you're doing, the people you're working with, and to understand that it's not about being perfect. It's, so many people when they volunteer, they want to do something, it's like they have to have their agenda, they have something to do, it's got to be perfect. No, sometimes it's just presence. You don't have to do anything. Sometimes it's all, but it depends on what work you're doing. But no matter what work you're doing, ask yourself continuously, like, why am I doing this? And what am I doing this for? And be honest with yourself and be gentle with yourself, because some of the answers may be hard, but it's a great opportunity to self-reflect. It's a great opportunity to grow. And it's a great opportunity to look at the ills of our culture and how they have become part of our DNA. The racism, the sexism, the ageism, the homophobia, the transphobia, for anyone to say they aren't any of that is crazy, because it is part of the culture. We have most of us have benefited in one way from being who we are. And it is important not to forget that, not to forget where we each come from, and not to forget that we are all broken and that we are all in need in one way or another, or will be at some time. So, paying it forward, being open, understanding that it's not going to be easy. Some people walk in and they think like, oh, this is going to be so, like, it's become so much about time. It's going to be so eye-opening. It's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be, it's like, no, let it be organic. Just be, and then see what comes out of it and to you. Don't go in thinking you know what's going to happen, because you don't.
So speaking of, I have one last question, and it looks like we've got a comment that I'll read out once we answer that question and kind of in closing. So if anybody else has any questions or comments you want to add to the chat, please send them through as we just like wrap up over the next few minutes. So the last question that I wanted to ask Michael was if you, in the last couple of years, your work has shifted. Yes. Right, in terms of the work of Friends of Dorothy House. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about like what shifted, where it's going now, how things are moving?
Sure. As the medicines came out, people got better. The one thing I'm sad about in the gay community, that all the activism, all the coalition building, all the things that happened, once the meds came out, it kind of stopped. Instead of looking behind and saying, okay, let's take these folks along with us. Let's use all of these abilities that we have created, and let's work on the racism. Let's look on the sexism. Let's work on, and it didn't really happen the way I would have hoped. I think what we need to recognize is the work is never done in ourselves or in the world. And so, we've had time to transfer some of it, but let me say this, AIDS is not over. And the people who fall through the cracks are the people who have the compounded issues that keep them from taking their medicines, mental health, addiction, extreme poverty. There's lots of reasons that keep people from being whole and healthy. And so those are still issues we need to look at. So the people we get now are the people that have the compounded issues, but luckily most of them we get better. Or they live longer than we ever thought. So that is good. So this shifted in that way. And it's also created room in our lives to look at other issues. And so Friends of Farm Workers came out of this also. And we're a coalition with folks looking at, farm workers and migrant farm workers and, ICE detention. And, we continue to not treat people as equals and as partners in this whole world, and how hard that is to do. All of us struggle with that. I am not perfect. The one thing I would say is I'm still a work in progress myself. And people sometimes don't understand that, or their expectations are so different of us. We're still learning, we're still growing. It never ends until you die if you're really and have some skin in the game. But like I said, I always do, when I used to speak out, I used to always ask people to work against the sins of racism and of classism and of ageism and homophobia and war and violence. Let us all really understand that the military industrial complex is sucking the life out of our communities and out of the world and out of communities all around the world. And if we were to only shift that and use our resources for not to secure our privilege, our power, our domination, but to extend it so that we are creating a world that's better for everybody. Until we come to that place, sadly, we will all be struggling. And when one of us struggles, whether we recognize it or not, we are all struggling. It isn't good for our own souls. It isn't good for our own hearts. So, and not to sound, that sounds kind of cliche and fluffy, but it really, really is true. And I always like to say to anyone I've hurt in this journey, I'm sorry. I was not perfect. I'm sure there were people. I mean, most people were really, really grateful and happy, but they were willing to accept crumbs from anywhere they were getting it. It was so horrible. And so I need to be humble enough and be able to recognize that, there's always room for improvement and in our ways of dealing with the cultural ills. No one, no matter how much work they've done, has it's finished, which is kind of a depressing thought, but it's true.
Right.
That's
and I
what's
mean,
real.
and I, you know, I want to hope that at least having been in community with you for some time now, that, you know, that we go through it together, right?
Yeah, we
You
have
know?
to go through it together. There's power in that.
Yeah.
You know, there really is power in numbers and power in not only numbers, but the level of love that is able to be produced.
Yeah.
And it's catchy. You can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
When there's love, you can feel it, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's contagious. And so as contagious as HIV and AIDS was, I would hope that our love would be as contagious.
Yeah. And as Michael says that the sun is coming out a little bit. So,
where's the rainbow?
Oh, well, right
Yeah,
here.
right here. Here we are. We're the rainbow.
Thank you so much for that, Michael.
I appreciate it. Thank you for creating this experience and the wine, everybody, but also for having your heart as open and loving. You're an inspiration to me, and your friendship and your ability to be out in the world is such a bright light. And I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful for you sharing yourself with us, but also a platform so that we don't get forgotten. You know, I've been watching some of these shows around AIDS lately that are newer, and I just, nothing actually captures. I mean, they do a good job, but nothing captures what the pain and the sorrow and the smells, the visuals, you know, the feeling of someone's loneliness, the feeling of someone feeling that they deserve this illness. You know, when you're sitting with someone and you're talking to them and you're holding them. I remember laying in beds with people that just no one had touched them. And people would think I was crazy because I was holding them and laying with them in bed, you know. We all need love no matter where we're at. And there's just not enough of it to go around.
Okay. All right. So with that, I want to read off a note that Toby sent in the chat, and then I have an invitation for you all before I bid you good night. So Toby says, beautiful film. Thank you, Michael. It's great to see you. I remember visiting my dad in Puerto Rico in the 80s, and all his friends on the surrounding islands were dying, and no one knew why. Most of my dad's exes are no longer with us. It's such a scary time. There was no support back then for people with HIV and AIDS, and so many unknowns and fears. It certainly has gotten better, but there is still so much to be done. Thank you for all you do at Dorothy's House. And Toby would like to know how we can help and support you and the work.
You can, I'm so bad at this. You know, finance, it's been hell through COVID. We haven't had our monthly supper. And it'll be in November, it would be 2 years since our last dinner.
Oh, wow.
So of course, that is one way of helping. Treating people well around you is always like the best way to make things, but you can contact us at through Friends of Dorothy House. Nick usually handles more of that than I do, but we appreciate the support. It's super humbling and really appreciated, and we try to be good stewards with it. Hope Dawn just got a new car. We're so happy for her. We help, you know, the ones that have survived, we still try to help when we can. And so the need is there. You know, figure it out. You guys figure it out as to, you know, contact us, reach out to us. We can talk to you. Nick will talk to you. But it's always embarrassing and difficult for me to, you know, I work to support the house, of course, and have carried us through this period of time right now. But come to a monthly supper, you know. That's, you know, when we start them again. Hopefully they'll be in September. And you know, food cards are always great because we give food cards out to people.
Okay.
And when people come, you know, then they get to pick out what they want to eat.
Like grocery gift
yeah,
cards?
grocery
Yeah.
gift cards. Usually to Aldi's, Price Chopper are good ones, and Price Right.
Okay.
You know, those are the stores that a lot of our guests will are close by or able to get to. So those are the ones that we usually ask for. And then, you know, we are able to
accept donations.
accept donations.
I was gonna kill him to draw it out of him. So yeah, so it sounds like food gift cards to Aldi's Price Right Price Chopper, also financial donations to Friends of Dorothy House, which is a nonprofit.
We are a
Yeah.
501, one of the few Catholic workers of ours. But it worked out. It worked. Everything worked, you know, like I said, we're not perfect.
I just want to thank everybody for their evening tonight, and for being with us, right? For being with us through this challenging content.
I have one thing to say. And when you do it with people, like when you're trying to help people, try to do it with some joy. You know, try to laugh around and have a good time if you can. And it's not easy. You know, it's not, but it's better if
it helps.
It helps.
Yeah, it absolutely helps. So with that, I would actually love to invite you all. I was listening to a podcast today about organizing and gathering people together. And it was a Prentice Hemphill podcast with the guest Priya Parker. And she was talking about when people return back, right? Re-entry, returning people back after a workshop or an organization or something in which emotional movement happens. And there was an invitation to ask folks to enter into the chat or to just spend some time contemplating on what it is that they want to take back out with them from the experience that we just shared together. So from the last hour or so, what is it that you all would like to take back out with you? So as we all hang out for a few more minutes, if anyone wants to type that into the chat, if you just want to meditate on it and take it back with you as you return to whatever it is that your evening looks like, that is how I would love to bid everyone a good night and wish you a really meaningful evening tonight. So good night, everybody.
Be well. Thank you. Thank you.